welcome to Cumberland Conversations. I'm Sally Shutt, Cumberland County's Public Information Director. This month's conversation focuses on the Cumberland County Board of Elections. Our guests are Board of Elections Director Terri Robertson and Bill Helms. Thank you so much for joining us today. Terri, tell us a little bit about your experiences with the Board of Elections, how long you've been with the board.
Well, I started with the Board of Elections in November of '94. I started part-time. I was going to be there temporarily, and in August of '95 I went on full-time. I worked until 2001, in which time they appointed me as the director, and I'm still here.
Well, great. Bill, tell us about your job with the Board of Elections.
Well, my actual title is Department IT Support Technician. I do various functions, including information requests for the public or the candidates, as well as making sure the website is up to date. But my main function are the voting machines, and I do all the maintenance, I verify all the maintenance with them. I do all the logic and accuracy testing, ensure that every machine is reading exactly as a ballot is cast before that machine goes out to a polling site or a one-stop site.
Well, how many polling machines do we have in Cumberland County?
We have like 213 touchscreen or direct record, the Ivotronic, which is the ADA compliant touchscreen. It's for the visually impaired. Also, we have 80 optical scan, or the ones that read the paper ballots.
Okay, wonderful. Well, tell us, Bill, where the office is located. Where can our citizens find the Board of Elections?
We're actually located at 227 Fountainhead Lane, which is the old health department, and we're on the first floor, which is basically the old health department that's behind Highsmith Rainey Hospital.
And how large is the staff?
We have 7 permanent full-time personnel, but we have various, and depending on the election cycle, we have various amounts of part-time personnel. In a large election, say for instance the presidential, you might have 3, 4, or 5 part-time personnel working in the office. Of course, we have our one-stop workers that work the 2 weeks for the one-stop, and then we have our polling site workers. That was hard to get out. Polling site workers, which on election day, you have 1 chief judge and 2 judges, and again, depending on the election, like a municipal election, we might have 1 or 2 assistants, but on a large election, for instance, like this year or during the presidential, polling site may have 5, 6, or 7 assistants.
So, like during an election this year, how many people may be working, including all the part-time?
1 chief judge, 2 judges, and maybe about 5 assistants per polling site.
Per polling site. Okay, well, how many polling sites are there?
77.
77 polling sites. Terri, let's talk about how the Board of Elections really it is a county department, but it's an arm of the state government. Can you explain that to our citizens?
Well, actually, we're not a county department. Although we consider ourselves part of the county. I mean, if somebody asks me I'm a county department, I'm going to tell them yes. But we're an independent entity. We report to a board, and that board is appointed by the state. So that board reports to the state. So the county funds us, we follow all the county regulations, the personnel policies and everything, but we're not a state department and we're not a county department. We're just like a little independent entity.
Well, talk to us about your board. It's a 3-member board, and how those members are appointed.
Our board is appointed in August of odd-numbered years. They are appointed by the state board. The state parties recommend 3 people to the state board, 3 for each county. And from that list of 3, the State Board of Elections appoints persons to boards in each county. Now there's 2 members on each board of the party of the governor. So when the governor changes, the board makeup changes.
Okay. Well, who are the 3 current members of the Board of Elections?
Our chairman is James Baker. Our secretary is Jonathan Wright, and then our member is Harvey Rayner.
And how often do they meet?
Once a month.
Once a month, okay. So I think it would be very interesting to kind of look at our voting population and some of those demographics and things. So, Bill, how many registered voters do we have in the county?
Well, it's a dynamic entity in itself, in the fact that people register to vote every single day. We get during list maintenance, we remove people. We get monthly reports from the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Corrections for the recently deceased individuals, and we remove them from the books. Also, the Department of Corrections, the felons are removed. But roughly, we have about 201,580 registered voters right now.
Okay. And this is a year when we will be going to the polls here. This is airing in April, so on May 6th there will be a primary for that November one. You mentioned earlier there are 77 precincts. Okay, so how can a person find out what precinct they're in if they've lost their voter registration card? Or
if they lost their voter registration card, they can always call us, and we'll give them their address, and we'll tell them which precinct they're in. They also have the ability on our webpage, which is linked to the state's webpage, where you can look yourself up. And eventually, and here shortly, once the state activates it, they'll be able to also pull off their sample ballot off the ballot that they'll be voting for in May.
Oh, great, great.
But yeah, they can look themselves up. They can see all the districts they are. They can see a voter history, how many times they voted.
Great. Well, Terri, I think that's the first step in becoming a voter, is getting that voter registration done. So could you walk us through how the voter registration requirements and that whole process of getting registered?
Yeah, I will. But I would like to also, before I do that, is Bill mentioned looking up their registration. I would encourage everyone to look up their registration and make sure it's correct, because some people move and forget to update their address, and they want to make sure their address is correct for this election. Not wait until they go to vote election day, because then it makes it more difficult, because then they have to update their address that day. So I encourage them to do that.
Yeah, and I guess that happens when people move within the county.
Yes.
And they just don't realize that it will impact, what
It impacts their ballot too, so we want to make sure that they have their address correct before election day.
Okay.
But if they're not registered, in order to register to vote, all you have to do is fill out an application. They're available online, at our office, at the libraries. They can register when they get their driver's license. You have to be a U.S. citizen to register. You have to be 18 years old or will be 18 years old before the general election. You have to be a resident of North Carolina and this county for 30 days before the election. You cannot be a convicted felon unless your rights of citizenship have been restored. And you can't be registered to vote or vote in any other state or county. So, those are really important things. And if you've been convicted of a felony and you were removed because you had been registered, once your rights of citizenship have been restored, all you have to do is re-register. So it's very easy to register. Just fill out the form.
Okay, all right. And we've mentioned that there's a May 6th primary and then the November election. So what are those races that we're seeing on the 2014 ballot, Bill? Tell us about those.
Well, the 2014 or the even years are the federal, state, and county elections. Your odd years are the municipal elections. So, for instance, all your odd years are going to have the city council districts, the town councilmen, mayors, and so forth. On the even years, you have the federal, state, and county. This year, you're going to have one senator is up. You have the congressional U.S. House, both the North Carolina State Senate and the North Carolina House of Representatives. County Commissioner District 1, County Commissioner at Large. We have the sheriff is running this year. Clerk of Court, District Attorney is running, and various judges. We have 7 district court judges are running also.
Okay. And then the first thing that I guess will be happening will be one-stop voting will be starting. Terry, tell us about early one-stop voting.
One-stop voting begins April the 24th, and we will have 7 locations here in Cumberland County, one being at our office. And then we'll have 6 additional, one at Cliffdale Rec, E.E. Miller Rec, the Smith Rec Center. There'll be one at the Hope Mills Rec Center, at the North Regional Branch Library, and one at the East Regional Branch Library. I think I've covered them all.
Yeah, you got I was counting.
I always have to think about them because we have so many of them.
And the hours, will the hours vary per location, or?
All of the off-site locations will be open from 12 to 7. Our office hours will be varied. We'll open every morning at 8, but we'll close some days at 6 and some days at 7.
The first Thursday, Friday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's 8 to 6. And the Thursday and Friday of the second week is from 8 to 7.
And it will run until the Saturday before.
The Saturday before, and that closes at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock, okay.
And all that information's available on the website.
Okay. Well, as a follow-up, Bill, how popular is one-stop voting in Cumberland County?
It's very popular. In fact, we're happy that it's very popular. I've been with the elections for 12 years. Just to kind of give you an example, in 2004, which is a couple of years after I got there, if you're doing the math, but November 2004, we had 20,000 people vote one stop, which was roughly 20% of the people that cast ballots during that election. In November 2012, we had roughly 80,000 people vote one stop, which is roughly 60% of the people that cast ballots during that election. So people are discovering it, and people are discovering the joys and the ease of the one stop. It's just like on election day, something might come up that prevents me from voting, but I have a 2-week period that I can vote at any time during that 2-week period.
Okay. Well, this is some good information, and we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation about our Board of Elections. We hope you'll join us. Welcome back to Cumberland Conversations as we continue our look at the Board of Elections. We're with Board of Elections Director Terri Robertson and Bill Helms. Terri, there are a lot of changes that have been going on with the voting in North Carolina, and so will you tell us about some of those changes?
Yes, Sally, there are a lot of changes. Some have a real big impact on voters and how things are done. One of them is one-stop voting. The time for one-stop voting changed. It used to last for 17 days, and it's been cut down to 10. However, the law, when it changed to 17 to 10 days, said that we were required to have the same number of hours for respective years. That meant that in 2014, we had to be open the exact same number of hours we were open in 2010. Therefore, that's why we open additional sites, and we're open in evenings to allow the voters to have more time. So that was one of the changes. It also eliminated the same-day registration, where if you weren't registered and you went to vote one stop, you could register that day and vote. You can no longer do that. So now you have to be registered 25 days before the election. So therefore, if you're not registered before April 11th, you cannot register to vote for this election. It also changed the absentee laws. Previously, people could just write us a letter and say, send me an absentee ballot. Now we're required to have absentee requests on the state-approved absentee form. That form is available on our website and the state absentee website. If you call our office and ask, we will mail you one. But we can no longer take a handwritten request. And when you fill out that request form, it now requires either your driver's license or state ID number or the last four of your social. Another big change was we have what we call a multi-partisan assistance teams. And those are teams that will be available to go to care facilities. If we are contacted by a care facility that has patients that need assistance in applying for absentee ballots or assistance in marking their ballot, voting, or whatever assistance they need, we'll have people that can go out and assist those people. The only thing is those people, the requirement is that they do not have a near relative or a legal guardian that's able to assist them. We can't just help anyone. It has to be people who meet that criteria. Also, the out of precinct voting, people who vote provisional ballots outside of their precinct, those will no longer be counted. So where I said earlier about making sure your address is correct, people used to go to the wrong precinct and just say, well, I just want to vote a provisional ballot here, and they would vote there, and we would count their ballot for what they were eligible to vote. That's no longer allowed. They have to vote in the correct precinct. So those are major changes. So again, we encourage people to vote one stop, especially if you forgot to change your address before the books close, because you can change your address at one stop, but you cannot register.
Okay. Well, Bill, what are the most frequently asked questions that you're hearing from citizens, maybe about the changes or about the whole voting process?
Well, it's not really the changes yet. I mean, we're not that close to election. Once you get close to the election, we'll start hearing those questions. Mm-hmm. But right now, I guess one of the biggest questions is that people will ask us, I registered in 2008 or I registered in 2010. Am I still registered to vote? And the answer to that is yes, you are, as long as you remained in the county. You must be registered in the county that you live in. And if you registered in 2008 and still live in the county, you're still registered to vote. If you have any changes, for instance, you moved from one location to another, or say, for instance, you got married and you changed your name, or you decided to switch parties, then you do need to do an update form, or it's the update registration form. Mm-hmm. And fill out that and send it in to us. And the importance of that is, like Terri was stating before, is that your physical location, you have districts within each of the physical locations. You have your North Carolina House District, your North Carolina Senate District, and so forth. And you want to make sure that you are voting for the person that actually represents you. Mm-hmm. And that's the important thing. And so it is important to make sure that information is updated. And also, when you go to vote on Election Day, if your information is already correct, it's less of a problem and a faster process for you to get out and vote.
Great. Terri, now I've heard you say before at our Citizens Academy that you're often, people say, well, what do y'all do the rest of the year if it's not election time? They're wondering, and I know you're very busy and your staff's very busy, but tell us about what your schedule's like.
As soon as we finish with one election, we start on the next. So, we have to keep our registration records up to date. So we're constantly updating our records. We're updating the maintenance on the machines, our manuals. So when you're finished with one election, you start the next. So it's a never-ending process. Like one of the changes in the laws this year for the voter ID, we've already started getting our stuff ready to educate the public. That'll be one of the things we'll do starting with this election. We're getting our stuff together because when people go to vote for this election, we're going to start asking, do you have this ID for 2016? Mm-hmm. Because if we don't start now, in 2016, we'll be behind the 8 ball. So we'll be saying, do you have this type of ID? And if they do, we'll be happy, they'll go on. If they don't, we're going to get their information so that we can contact them later on and say, this is what you need to get your free ID. Mm-hmm. So it's always something. It's a never-ending process in elections.
Yeah, it's also a never-ending spot checking. Mm-hmm. We're constantly checking. We'll take addresses and double check to make sure that they are in the proper districts, that a mistake hasn't been made somewhere and that everything is correct. Because we do want everybody to vote for their proper representative. And we're very, we work really hard to try to make sure that everybody is districted properly and in the proper precincts.
Now, Terry mentioned that April 11th, I believe, is the deadline for voter registration for the May 6th primary. So a lot of that information, like those deadlines, are available online on the website. So Bill, tell us about where that website is and the things that citizens can find.
We've throughout the years, we've taken questions that people have asked or information requests that people have asked us, and the candidates also, the voters and the candidates. And we've tried to make it easy on everybody, and so we've worked really hard to get all that information up on the website. One of the main things, and one of the things that I really like, is the fact that on election night we have links to on our website where an individual can see the election results as they come in. As we get the information or the data from the polling sites, we upload it to the internet, and so the citizens or the candidates can look at it in real time. Mm-hmm. As we get it, they're getting it also. Yeah. You don't have to rely on the TV station, a little tiny scroll bar underneath the TV to find out what the information is. Yeah. We have our district maps up there so that you can pull up a district map, say for instance a Senate map or a House map, and find your street on there and see which district you're in and which district your neighbor's in. We have statisticals, which is the demographic numbers from 2000 on up to the present, every monthly. We have all the past election results from November 2000 up until November 2013, every single election. Great. So if you're curious as to who ran in which election and how they did, then they can pull that information up. We also have precinct worker application forms for people that are interested in becoming a precinct worker.
So they can go to www.co.cumberland.nc.us and click on the Board of Elections under the departments.
Yeah. The way I like to tell them is the easiest way is just go to Google and type in Cumberland County NC Board of Elections.
There you go.
And the NC is important because I guess there's a Cumberland County in probably every state.
Yeah. Well, Terry, looking ahead, what are the Board of Elections goals? What are some of the goals for the future?
What I've always told everybody and my staff, our goal is always to have fair, honest, and open elections, and that's what we work toward every single day. And that's in our work in the office, our work in training our precinct officials, when we program our machines, because to me, I want the voters, when they go into a precinct, I want our precinct officials, they reflect us. So when they look at those precinct officials, I want them to see people who are sitting there that have no opinion. And that's what I tell our precinct officials when we train them. You are an employee of the Board of Elections. You are not an employee of a party. You are unaffiliated on election day, and you have no opinion. So to me, it's just so important that when people look at my staff and I and our precinct officials, that they look at us as being nonpartisan, and my staff and I really are nonpartisan. So always our goal is just to have a good election.
Mm-hmm. And it's just around the corner, so Bill, please encourage our individuals to register to vote.
It's very important that you register to vote. It really is. And people think, well, you know, I'm just one vote. My vote doesn't matter. But you take that one vote that you think doesn't matter, then you add it to another vote that they think it doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. You know, like the old 1970s shampoo commercial where I told two people and they told two people and they told two people. You know, one person it doesn't matter. Well, they vote, then that other person votes, and it all adds up and exponentially adds up to. And that could change an election. That one vote could change an election.
Terri, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, that one vote, Bill and I have both seen where one vote did win an election, and we've seen where a tie, where we've had to toss a coin to find out who would win because it was a tie.
Wow.
So one vote does make a difference.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing this information with our citizens. Our time is up for now, and I want to thank Terri Robertson and Bill Helms for joining us and giving us a look at the Board of Elections. Thank you for sitting in on our conversation. We hope you will join us for future Cumberland Conversations, and you can learn more about what's happening in Cumberland County government and the Board of Elections by visiting our website or Facebook page. We also hope you will consider enrolling in our Citizens Academy, which is now offered twice each year.